right, today, well, over the next few days, you're spending them with me. As many of you know, I started running consistently at the beginning of this year. Right now, it is the very end of October. So I've currently got about 10 months under my belt of experience. And with that experience, I want to talk about how to come back from a bad run. Now, I've run on and off in the past, so I'm sure I've had more like bad runs than the ones that we're going to focus on today. But there are two in the past year that have haunted me to this day. And when I say bad, I mean like bad, like crash out bad, like there were tears bad. One of them was a 7-mile run to Roosevelt Island. And the other one was the most recent race that I ran, the Bronx 10-mile. So what we're gonna do in today's video is not only talk about like how to come back from a bad run and show up for yourself, but what that exactly looks like. So we're gonna be looking at not only the run itself, but what we did ahead of time and then what we can do to help ourselves show up again when we're like, oh shit, that went really poorly. We do have a recovery run on the docket today, but let's just kind of talk about the rest of the day at hand. I had a nice slow morning just editing a YouTube video. I've got a check-in with a remote client in about 30 minutes or so. We got a virtual client. We're going to go on a recovery run. Unfortunately, it is in the middle of a storm right now, so it's going to have to be indoors. And then I've got 2 more virtual clients. I'm done at like 4 p.m. today. Lovely Thursday. So before we actually go on our recovery run, we'll kind of sit down. We're going to start today talking about the Roosevelt Island 7-mile run that I did have a nervous breakdown during. And we're gonna talk about what went wrong. So we'll be back for that. Whenever I put my hair in a ponytail, I always think of that show from MTV, True Life. And they did the one True Life, I Have Tourette's. And the girl lived with her grandma. And whenever she put her hair up in a ponytail and she'd be brushing it, she'd be like, "Bumps, Grandma!" I fucking love that girl. All right, let's chat, and we're going to just do our warm-up for our run, which we're going to leave for in about 15 minutes. So we're going to walk through my 7-mile run on Roosevelt Island and talk about what went wrong. So there's a number of things that went wrong with this run. First and foremost, I was not fueled. This was kind of for a number of reasons. We had a really long travel day back the day before, and we were away the entire weekend and actually like just didn't have any food. I don't think I had any bread, no carbs ready to go. And I remember I literally just like took a gel right before I left and then went on a run. We also had a fun weekend with friends that we were traveling with, and I was hungover. It happens. I didn't have enough sleep, and it wasn't even good sleep. Like, it was the worst night's sleep ever. And something else that sucked was that, like, while I kind of mapped out the run, this was my first time running on Roosevelt Island, and I just did not know my route well enough at all. Like, while I did map it out so that I had my 7 miles, I didn't actually, like, know the path, like, visually. Oh, hamstring. I didn't know the path, like, visually on Roosevelt Island, and it was a little, like, I wasn't really clear where I was supposed to turn around. I ended up turning around and coming back too soon, and then I was just doing this thing where I was, like, literally running around, just trying to, like, get my last mile and a half, like, around my apartment, and it was just pretty miserable. Whatever the bridge is that goes over to Roosevelt Island from Astoria, I, like, when I was about to come back on it, I called Kevin, and I was, like, sobbing. I was like, "Can't do it. I can't finish the run." It was very dramatic. So obviously, like, some of those things are out of my control, but let's talk about a few factors that definitely are in my control that I am going to keep in mind for future runs to help me come back from a bad run. All right, so the first mistake I made here was being unfueled. And even though, like, yes, it's like, oh, I didn't have anything in the house. I could have prepared better for that. Down to, like, scheduling groceries to be in the apartment when we got back, to even, like, the night before when we got back from our trip, like, Justina, go to the bodega, literally next door to you, and grab a bagel. Like, something would have been better than nothing, or better than a disgusting caffeinated gel that I ended up taking. I did already make an entire video talking about like how to make sure you're not self-sabotaging yourself when it comes to your goals, so definitely check that out if you want to know a little bit more about like my thought process of identifying problem spots and then fixing them along the way. Okay, so then the next problem spot that like definitely went wrong and I should have adjusted for was not knowing my route clear enough. In hindsight, on a day like that where I'm coming back from just like circumstances that are a little bit out of my control, I should have just done a route that I was really familiar with. Because what happens to me when I don't know where I'm going, my heart rate climbs, I start to panic, it's like going into a race and not knowing where like the aid stations are, the mile markers are, or like knowing where the hills are gonna be. I just kind of like at one point had mapped out this 7-mile option, had never run on Roosevelt Island before, and I was like, this sounds like a good day to do it, when in hindsight, I should have just done my good old trusty up and around Astoria Park and back until I hit 7 miles. Because at least body-wise, especially when I'm not at 100%, I knew what that was gonna feel like. Okay, then finally, there are the factors that are just kind of out of my control. You know, being sleepy and coming back from travel and hungover and all of these other factors, I think, you know, there's not really much I could do about it, but there were other factors that I should have manipulated to give myself a little bit more support. So I think a good lesson from this specific incident is that I should have known that I wasn't going to be set up at 100% on a Sunday long run, which I never do because of a long weekend of travel. So I should have given myself as much support as I could, which required a little more proper planning, which I did not do. So then how do we come back from this run? We learn from our mistakes and we don't make them again. So what did I do today? Granted, this is a 2.25-mile recovery run, but I made sure I ate. I made sure I slept well. I know my route, and my route is on a treadmill because it's pouring rain outside. And, you know, we're going to talk about some tactics for like motivation and talking yourself up a little bit later in the video. But specifically right now, I'm just going to take the mistakes that I did before and I'm going to learn from them and correct them. So with that, we're going to wait for Kevin to finish getting ready, and then we're going to walk over to the gym and we're going to run the treadmill for 2.25 miles. Great.
We want to make sure the back toes are tucked under that starfish plank. Less than 10. Right in. Later, a little heavier. I want you to lean up in an explosive manner.
Good morning. Oh my goodness. I just finished teaching my Halloween HIIT class, which was like very doable. And then the finisher that I had programmed, 15 swings, and then squat jumps, and then push-ups, and then we had to do 10, and then we had to do 5. And that actually, like, at the end of class, I was like, ooh, I wanted to vomit. I am going to try to not be profusely sweating so much. We're gonna edit this class, and then on our walk to the gym, because I do have to get in my full body workout, we're gonna talk a little bit about the Bronx 10 mile, and we're gonna do the same thing as yesterday, what went wrong, and how I would correct this in the future. So let's start editing class. We're on the way to the gym, and we're going to talk about the Bronx 10 mile, which unfortunately is like the big race that I was training for through the summer. And yeah, it was one of the worst runs of my entire life.
I already made an entire video kind of breaking it down, but just as a quick recap, the two things that I honestly just like fucked up. The first thing that I messed up was running with other people. I had a friend and a client running the race. They both wanted to start with me, and I said yes, and I really just shouldn't have, because it ended up making me too nervous and going out too fast, which was my second mistake. And the second mistake, I don't know, like I actually have thought about this a lot more because, like I said in the whole 10-mile recap video, I lost all of my data, so I actually don't even know like how fast I started out. It was definitely around 10:30, but I'm like, was that too fast? I don't really know. I honestly think I just psyched myself out. I think the conditions were rough that day. It was like 92% humidity, and I think I just freaked myself out. But regardless, the thing that I can learn from all of that is don't run a race with other people, because you're just not the type of person, you don't have enough chill. And just start a little slower than you think. Every other time I've raced, I've just kept telling myself, stay slow, stay slow. And then when I actually get my pace, I'm like, oh, that was a little faster than I thought, because adrenaline just kind of carries you through. That's the very quick recap of how the Bronx 10 mile went. I didn't want to harp on that too much because I've already got it at nausea. But we're going to go do our full body lift. I did already get my pull-ups in at home because I'm a princess and I like having a cushioned grip. So really the only big things that we have to work on in the gym today are some deadlifts, we've got some step downs, and we've got some overhead pressing. Let's do it.
Good morning. I like to imagine I've left no context with that last clip, but yesterday was Halloween. The story behind that costume is too long to explain, so we'll save that for another time. But we are getting ready for our Saturday long run. Today, Kevin and I pretty much have the same thing. He's doing the 8-week Nike Run Club 5K training program. Words. He actually just has a 5K today. I remember that day in the program very well. I'm just like, oh, you just want me to run 5K, okay. And I have 30 to 35 minutes of like easy pace running, so I'm just gonna run a 5K because that'll definitely fall in there. So we're gonna run that together. But as we're just kind of like mobilizing, waking up, let's kind of chat about the other piece of this that we haven't touched on yet. Because I feel like what we've talked about so far has been, identifying obvious things that went wrong and then kind of brainstorming through like, okay, how can I avoid sabotaging myself in this way next time? But I think the piece that we haven't really discussed yet is also just like sometimes shit happens that is out of your control. And we've talked about a few of those instances so far in the video, and just like how things happen in life that are out of control, the same thing is going to be that with your runs. If you're a performer and like sometimes you just have an off day, my husband's a stand-up comic, sometimes like it just doesn't hit. Things happen, but you have to keep showing up to put in the reps. If it's something that you actually want to do, you enjoy, and you want to get better at. And I think that's the thing that I'm really trying to figure out for myself. People keep asking me like, well, do you like running now? Have you started to enjoy it more? And the answer is yes, but I think that there's like an asterisk on that. Because I think what I've realized is that my kind of sweet spot of what I enjoy is kind of that 3 to 5 mile range. It's like enough mileage where I feel like all of this effort of like warming up, getting my body ready, planning out a route, it's enough mileage where it feels like that's worth it. And then that 5 mile mark is like, okay, that's kind of where I start to get a little cuckoo in the head. So I still do have that goal of wanting to run the New York City half. The lottery gets chosen later this month, so we'll see if I get into the lottery, and then we'll decide if I don't do that, if I want to support a charity like I did for the Bronx 10 mile. But I kind of want to do that because I want to push myself and I want to see if I can do it. But I think at the end of all of this gabbing that I've done over the last 3 days, I personally think the best way to come back is to pick the option that is your sweet spot. Pick the option of something that you're really going to enjoy. I talk about this a lot with strength training too. It's like if you've fallen into a rut or out of the habit, or you're looking for that spark of motivation, just pick something you enjoy. I don't care what it is. What's something that just gets you to show up? Is it working on a specific skill? Is it a certain piece of music or playlist? Is it something completely different from what you're used to doing? So personally, I think that no matter what if you're following a training plan, no matter what your training plan says, if you're coming back from a bad run, I think the best way to get back into a good feeling of good runs is to pick the stuff that feels really, really good to you. So I'm not coming off of a bad run, but let's say whatever my last run was this week felt like doo-doo. I would set myself up for success today. I would pick perfect mileage. Today is a 5K. Love that distance. That's I've so many tempo 5Ks in my 10-mile training. This feels like cake now. So I pick a distance that makes me feel really accomplished. I would make sure I'm listening to something that really supports me. So I might even go back into the Nike Run Club and pick a nice motivational 5K with Coach Bennett. Coach Bennett, I'm a big fan over here. And then I'm gonna pick a path that I love, without telling everyone exactly where I live. I love this nice path that takes me away from the aggressive drivers in New York City, but it's all the way up by the Con Ed plant, over by the park, and I just kind of loop around up there because I'm not constantly looking like I'm gonna get hit by a car. So I can just kind of really get in the zone. It's beautiful views of the water, of Randall's Island and Manhattan. So it's really not that complex, how you're gonna get back from a bad run. It's about figuring out what makes a good run and how many of those elements can you put into your next run. That hit. I'm going to continue just wake up, move my body. Kevin's going to come here and he's going to start to warm up a little bit. And then I'm going to take you on a run. We'll just because it's a fun day, we'll finish out the day. I don't think I'm going to talk to you anymore, but let's do it.
All right, we're 1 mile in. We're climbing a little bit of a hill, and it is windy. Holy shit. But 1 mile, 11:05, nice easy pace. I feel like I'm pushing a little bit more because it's so cold, but it feels good. Let's keep going. Kevin's hanging on strong back there. All right, just hit 2 miles. I'll pop the pace on the screen. We definitely sped up a little bit. Feeling good though. Running by the water is always a little tough when it's windy and cold, but the 5K we're doing on Thanksgiving is right by the water, so it's good practice. Got my Tate McRae mix on Spotify. Honestly, I know I'm too old to be listening to her, but damn, she brings me some joy. Just good, easy bops. And that's the vibe today. Good, easy bops. Good, easy run. Finish it out. We got 1 mile to go.